always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany a cat on the prowl. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches, and then moves on. The words of Carl Sandburg. Cats are enigmatic creatures whose whereabouts outside the home after dark are somewhat shrouded in mystery. There's even one here in the studio. Somehow on his wanderings, I guess he found his way through all the security. I know where some of them end up. My yard, prowling through my vegetable garden and flower beds, and wailing along the back fence. In August, something mysterious takes place. It's something called cat nights. Kipling wrote the cat. He walked by himself, and all places were alike to him. He went through the wet, wild woods, waving his wild tail, and walking by his wild lone. But he never told anybody. This year, they seem to be on the prowl more than ever. We'll go out into the dark and follow these creatures of the night on their wanderings with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Amanda Stott welcoming a homeless heart, and Hall & Oates and Sara smile. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. An English proverb says, in a cat's eye, all things belong to cats. And I would imagine that includes the humans who tend to their every need and do so gladly. But there are others who are not so fond of them. Faith Resnick was quoted as saying, people that hate cats will come back as mice in their next life. August 17th marked the beginning of something the Old Farmer's Almanac calls cat nights. This legend goes a long way back in time. There used to be a belief that witches could turn themselves into cats. Our modern mythology tells us that the cat was a witch's familiar. In the old days, the cat was the witch in feline form. Since cats are usually on the prowl in August, the legend seems to have originated at this time of the year. Last night after I got home, I happened to look out my front windows and saw a cat literally rolling on its back on our concrete driveway. This morning I saw one walking down the middle of the street as if it owned the road, and almost daring anything to challenge its authority to be there. Maybe there really is something to this thing called cat nights. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Come away with me. Over the Rainbow, What a Wonderful World, a Wonderful Medley, and Rhiannon. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I thought we might go on the prowl with some of them, see what they see through their eyes. And who knows, we might even meet up with a witch disguised as one. And I guess pray it's not the Blair Witch. In quite a few of his poetry collections, Rod McEwen included photographs of some of the cats he's known. This is an excerpt from a poem called Brownstone from his Random House collection, Stanyan Street and Other Sorrows. And I quote, "They're tearing down the building across the street, and the old woman who sat cushion high behind the flower boxes is gone. Even the children who played along the broken sidewalk have disappeared. and their hopscotch lines are washed away. Only the multicolored cat preening in the shop window is unconcerned as night begins. Unquote. Rod McEwen knew his cats well. These are a few excerpts from another of his poems simply called Cats, from the collection Watch for the Wind, published by Pocket Books. And I quote, "When ready for some human contact, usually at mealtime, or when you're busy doing something, they know they can disturb. They're smarter than the fox, more curious than the possums, but they do not extend lapdog submission. A cuddle or a belly rub, perhaps a scratch behind the ear, is quite enough." Unquote. McEwen concludes, and again I quote, "Cats, I reckon, have it all. Admiration and an endless sleep. And company only when they want it." Unquote. As I said, Rod McEwen knew his cats well. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Lights to Drive My Soul, The Eagles with Witchy Woman and Molly Johnson. And my oh my, I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. In the book Superstition and the Superstitious by Eric Maple, published in 1971 by A.S. Barnes, was this, and I quote, "The domestic cat, which was the emblem of Bast, cat goddess of the ancient Egyptian city of Bubastis, was worshipped as a deity by the ancient Egyptians, and this is almost certainly responsible for the aura of magic with which it has been surrounded ever since. It was no doubt this pagan aspect which resulted in the degradation of this luckless animal into the witch's familiar in the 16th and 17th centuries. Today we have a number of superstitious beliefs associated with the black cat, black being the supposed color of the powers of darkness, which is generally regarded as a kind of highly charged magical battery with the ability to influence the affairs of man for good or ill. This is why it is lucky for a black cat to walk towards you, for in doing so it conveys prosperity in your direction, while the reverse applies should it walk the other way. In the United States and parts of Europe, however, the black cat is ostracized as a symbol of disaster, doubtless because of its supposed past associations with black witchcraft. There are a number of surviving superstitions associated with the black cat which suggest a similar dual role in our own history." Unquote. Eric Maple goes on to write that there is an even older belief, again I quote, that the cat was a kind of vampire. On the other hand, the cat is a strong luck bringer in Cornwall, England, where it is still believed that wishes can be made to come true by the simple process of stroking the back of a black cat 3 times using 3 fingers only. Unquote. Superstition aside, you can learn a lot from a cat. Hippolyte Taine remarked, "I have studied many philosophers and many cats. The wisdom of cats is infinitely superior." And Joseph Woodcrutch wrote, "Cats seem to go on the principle that it never does any harm to ask for what you want." That's a lesson that shouldn't be lost on their human companions. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. The Beatles with Blackbird, and Cat Stevens and Moonshadow. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. An anonymous writer said, "Dogs believe they are human. Cats believe they are God." And that may be true because the cat figures in the mythology of many cultures the world over. Over 4,000 years ago, the Egyptians worshipped these animals, and when one outlived its 9 lives, all the household, family and servants alike, shaved their eyebrows and mourned its passing. This according to a past edition of the Britannica. And I quote, "The death of a temple cat was mourned by the whole city. Many mummies of cats have been found, prepared in the same way as the mummies of kings and nobles. The penalty for killing a cat was death." Unquote. A cat was believed to be able to do battle with a snake, and for that reason they were also revered. Again, I quote, "In Asia, it may have been the people of India who first domesticated cats. Here, too, many superstitions about cats grew up. A common Eastern superstition is that men become cats after death. Some believe that either a genie or the last born of twins can change into a cat at will." In China, it was thought that the cats were able to change into other creatures after they had reached a certain age. Both the Japanese and Chinese believed the cats had great wisdom and that they could speak after they were 10 years old. In Japan, the killer of a cat brought a curse not only on himself, but on his family for 7 generations. The Emperor Ichiko of Japan had so much respect for cats that he appointed one a lady-in-waiting at his court. Unquote. Another anonymous writer said, "Thousands of years ago, cats were worshipped as gods." Cats have never forgotten this. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Elton John with Mona Lisas and Mad Hatters, and I played that in honor of the Cheshire Cat. From Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll wrote, "All right," said the Cheshire Cat. And this time it vanished quite slowly, beginning with the end of the tail and ending with the grin, which remained some time after the rest of it was gone. Maybe that's where they go sometimes. They just vanish. James Robinson Planche has the perfect ending to The Grinning Cheshire Cat when he wrote, "It would have made a cat laugh. Or at least do what this cat in my arms is doing right now." Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. I hope you will tell all your friends about Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.